Before you quit your job as a married woman, watch this. The perfect illusion. Yetunde's life had always been one of the structure, ambition, and balance. From her days at university, she was known as the driven one. The girl who balanced rigorous classes, part-time work, and leadership roles with ease. Her friends would often joke, "Yetunde, do you ever rest? You are the poster child for success." But for Yetunde, success wasn't just about personal ambition. It was about proving that she could stand tall on her own 2 feet. Her father had taught her that lesson early in life. A man of modest means but unwavering pride. He had instilled in her the belief that a woman's independence was her greatest strength. And so, as Yetunde climbed the corporate ladder in Lagos, she kept that lesson close to her heart. When she met Ademola, it felt like destiny. He was everything she thought she didn't need but secretly desired. Charming, confident, and widely successful. Ademola exuded the kind of power that made people stop and take notice. Yetunde first saw him at a networking event where he had given a keynote speech on the secret to wealth. His words had been magnetic, his humor disarming. When he approached her afterward, drink in hand, she couldn't help but be intrigued. "You are the only one here who didn't seem impressed by my speech," Ademola said, flashing a smile that revealed perfect white teeth. "Why is that?" Yetunde had laughed, raising her glass, "Because I know there is no such thing as a secret to wealth, just hard work." Ademola leaned in slightly, as if sharing a conspiratorial secret. "Hard work, yes, but charm doesn't hurt either." The banter flowed easily, and within weeks, they were inseparable. Ademola showered her with attention, planning extravagant dates and surprising her with thoughtful gestures. One weekend, he whisked her away to a private beach resort. Another time, he sent a bouquet of roses to her office, the note simply reading, "For the woman who challenges me in the best way." Yetunde had fallen hard, even as a small voice inside her whispered caution. Her independence had always been shelled, and here was a man promising to take care of her in a way she never imagined. When Ademola proposed just 6 months later, dropping to one knee in front of her family and friends at a lavish dinner, her heart said yes before her mind could catch up. "I promise to make your life easier, Yetunde," Ademola had said as he slid diamond ring onto her finger. "You will never have to struggle again." Her family was ecstatic, her friends envious, and Yetunde herself was swept away by the whirlwind of it all. But as the wedding plan began, she started noticing subtle shifts in Ademola's demeanor. He insisted on handling every detail of the wedding, often dismissing her input. "Don't stress yourself with these decisions," he would say. "I know what is best." At the time, she thought it was sweet. She told herself that Ademola was just trying to lighten her load, to show her that she could rely on him. But a seed of doubt had been planted, a seed that would grow into something far larger in the years to come. Yetunde's early days of marriage were a whirlwind of luxury and new beginnings. Ademola had spared no expense in creating a home fit for royalty, a sprawling mansion in one of Lagos' most exclusive neighborhoods, complete with marble floors, high ceilings, and imported furniture. "You deserve the best," he told her with pride, as they walked through the jaded doors of their new home. Yetunde couldn't help but feel awed by the life she was stepping into. It felt surreal, like a dream she was afraid to wake from. At first, Ademola's attention felt like love. He insisted on handling the household finances, claiming that his years in businesses made him better suited to manage their affairs. "You focus on making our home beautiful," he would say, kissing her forehead. Yetunde, still in the honeymoon phase, trusted him completely, but the cracks began to show within months. Ademola started questioning every choice she made. If Yetunde ordered an expensive meal while they dined out, he would comment, "You really like the finer things, don't you? Good thing I can afford it." If she brought something for the house, he would ask, "Did we really need that? You should run these things by me next time." What began as gentle suggestions soon turned into controlling behaviors. Ademola implemented a strict budget for her, doling out allowances like she was a child. "You don't work anymore," he explained. "I just want to make sure we are being responsible." Yetunde initially laughed it off, but she soon realized he wasn't joking. Whenever she brought up her old career or expressed a desire to get involved in something meaningful, Ademola shut her down. "Why would you say you want to go back to work? That is for women who have to work. You are my wife now. Your job is to make me proud." Ademola's dismissiveness extended beyond finances. He began making decisions without consulting her. Everything from the color of the curtains to their travel plans. Yetunde felt her independence slipping away bit by bit, but she convinced herself it was just an adjustment period. After all, marriage required compromise, didn't it? But as Ademola's business empire grew, so did his ego. He became less of a partner and more of a dictator, treating Yetunde as if her role was to serve him. He would return home late from work, offering no explanation, and expect her to have dinner ready no matter the hour. When Yetunde once questioned his lateness, he simply waved her off. "Business is demanding," he said. "You wouldn't understand." Her friends began to notice the change in her demeanor. "You have been so quiet lately," her best friend Tola said during lunch one afternoon. "Where is the Yetunde who always had something to say?" "I'm fine," Yetunde replied, forcing a smile. "Marriage is just an adjustment." Tola frowned. "Adjustment or control? Don't lose yourself, Yetunde." Yetunde dismissed her concerns, but deep down, she knew Tola was right. She missed the vibrant, independent woman she used to be, but every time she tried to assert herself, Ademola found a way to remind her of her place. The breaking point came during a dinner party Ademola hosted for his business associate. Yetunde, eager to make a good impression, spent the entire day preparing, overseeing the caterers, setting the table, and ensuring every detail was perfect. She even dressed in one of Ademola's favorite gowns, hoping he would notice her effort. As the guests arrived, Yetunde floated between conversations, smiling politely and making small talk, but Ademola barely acknowledged her presence. He spent the evening entertaining his colleagues, laughing loudly and boasting about his latest deals. When one of the guests commented on the beauty of their home, Ademola grinned. "It's all thanks to my hard work," he said, raising his glass. "I built this life from nothing." Yetunde's smile faltered. She felt invisible, like a prop in Ademola's carefully curated world. But the final blow came when one of the guests turned to her and asked her, "What about you, Yetunde? What do you do?" Before she could answer, Ademola interjected with a laugh. "She doesn't need to do anything. She just enjoys the good life." The table erupted in laughter. and Yetunde felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. That night, as she lay in bed beside Ademola, who snored loudly without a care in the world, Yetunde stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. She had given up everything for a man who saw her as nothing more than a trophy. Something had to change. Ademola's controlling behavior escalated over time. He criticized Yetunde's cooking, her spending, even the way she spoke to their staff. "You are too soft on them," he once said. "They need to respect you, and that means knowing who is in charge." Yetunde began to feel like a prisoner in her own home. She missed her old life, the thrill of closing deals, her colleagues, the independence of earning her own money. She thought about returning to work, but every time she brought it up, Ademola dismissed the idea. "What will people think of me if my wife has to work? It would be embarrassing." Yetunde's world shrank. Her days were spent managing the household, waiting for Ademola to come home, and trying to avoid his criticism. Her once vibrant personality was reduced to a whisper, her confidence chipped away by years of neglect and condescension. But beneath her quiet exterior, something was stirring. Yetunde was tired of being overlooked and undervalued. She began to think about ways to regain her independence, even if it meant doing it in secret. The time Yetunde thought about leaving Ademola, she dismissed the idea as impossible. She had no money of her own, no job, and no support system. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, the idea grew louder in her mind. What if she didn't need Ademola's permission to reclaim her life? What if she could find a way to stand on her own again? Yetunde didn't have all the answers yet. But one thing was clear: she was no longer willing to live in the shadow of a man who didn't see her worth. Ademola's late nights became the norm. He always had an excuse: a business meeting that ran late, an urgent conference call, or a client to dinner. Yetunde stopped asking questions after a while. Each time she did, she was met with the same dismissive response: "It's work, Yetunde. You wouldn't understand." But deep down, Yetunde knew something was wrong. The tension in their marriage had become unbearable. Ademola had grown colder, more impatient. Their conversations were short and functional, and he barely glanced at her when he came home. Yetunde had always believed that communication was the foundation of a healthy marriage, but every time she tried to talk, she was met with silence or irritation. One night, while Ademola was showering, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Yetunde had never been one to snoop, but curiosity got the better of her. She picked up the phone, and her heart sank. The screen displayed a message from someone named Linda. "I can't wait to see you tonight, my love. Don't forget the earrings I showed you." Her hands shook as she scrolled through the conversation. There were photos of Linda, a younger woman with flawless skin, long hair, and an expensive watch. Ademola had been sending her lavish gifts, including jewelry, designer bags, and even plane tickets. The messages were filled with affection, a stark contrast to the difference he showed Yetunde. When Ademola came out of the bathroom, she confronted him. "Who is Linda?" she asked, holding up his phone. Ademola didn't even flinch. Instead, he snatched the phone from her hand and smirked. "You are going through my phone. How insecure can you be?" "Insecure? You are cheating on me, Ademola. Who is she?" Yetunde's voice cracked with emotion. "She's someone who appreciates me," Ademola said coldly, "unlike you, who only complains and nags." Yetunde felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath her. I gave up everything for you, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. My career, my independence, everything. And I gave you a life most women would kill for. Ademola shot back. Don't act like you are a victim. You don't earn anything, Yetunde. You wouldn't even survive without me. His words cut deeper than any knife. That night, Yetunde lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replying his cruel words in her mind. She realized she was married to a man who didn't value her. Perhaps never had. Ademola's affair with Linda became bolder over time. He stopped hiding his late night and even started taking Linda to events Yetunde once attended with him. Rumors spread among their social cycle, but no one dared to confront Yetunde directly. The inevitable confrontation happened at a business event hosted by one of Ademola's associates. Yetunde had reluctantly agreed to attend, hoping to salvage what little remained of their village. But when she arrived, Linda was already there, draped in a stunning red gown. Her arm looped through Ademola's. Yetunde felt like she couldn't breathe. She wanted to turn around and leave, but her feet refused to move. Ademola saw her and had the audacity to smirk. Ah, Yetunde, you finally decided to join us. Linda looked her up and down, her lips curling into a smug smile. So this is the wife, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. I thought you would be taller. The insult was delivered with such casual cruelty that Yetunde couldn't respond. The room seemed to spin as she stood there, humiliated in front of strangers. Ademola didn't defend her. Instead, he laughed and said, let's not make a scene. That night, Yetunde cried harder than she had ever had before. The pain of her husband's betrayal was one thing, but the public humiliation was unbearable. It was as if her dignity had been stripped away piece by piece. Linda grew bolder after that event. She began sending Yetunde taunting messages, mocking her position as Ademola's wife. One message read, you should thank me for keeping your husband entertained. Clearly, you are not enough for him. Yetunde never responded, but each message chipped away at her already fragile self-esteem. Ademola, on the other hand, acted as though Linda's behavior was perfectly acceptable. She is young and fiery, he said once, laughing. You could learn a thing or two from her. Yetunde began to withdraw from everyone. She avoided friends and family, too ashamed to admit what was happening. She felt trapped with no money of her own and no support system. But even in her darkest moment, a small voice whispered, you are not powerless. While Ademola continued his affair, Yetunde decided she couldn't remain idle any longer. She began rebuilding her life in secret. Late at night, while Ademola was out with Linda, she would sit at the dining table with her laptop, researching property management and taking online marketing courses. She reached out to her father's late lawyer, who helped her formalize control over the property she had inherited. To Ademola, Yetunde seemed docile, a woman beaten into submission, but in reality, she was laying the foundation for her independence. She started managing her properties, meeting with tenants, and reinvesting in the profit. Slowly but surely, she began to reclaim her sense of self-worth. Ademola's downfall began with his arrogance. He believed his wealth was untouchable and his power limitless. But poor business decisions, recklessly spending, and mounting debt soon caught up with him. Deals fell through, creditors started calling, and the cracks in his empire became impossible to ignore. Linda, Ever the opportunist saw the writing on the wall. "I can't be with someone who is struggling," she told Ademola one evening. "Call me when you are back on your feet." Ademola was devastated. He tried to win her back with empty promises, but Linda was gone, leaving him with nothing but a pile of unpaid bills and a broken ego. Ademola was forced to sell their mansion and most of their possessions to pay off his debt. He rented a modest apartment in a middle-class neighborhood, dragging Yetunde along with him. He blamed everyone but himself for this predicament, never acknowledging his role in their downfall. Yetunde, however, moved into the new apartment with a quiet confidence. She had already prepared for this moment, knowing it was only a matter of time. Before Ademola's empire crumbled, what Ademola didn't know that the apartment he had rented belonged to her. The transition to a modest apartment marked a stark contrast to the life of Ademola and Yetunde once lived. Gone were the marble floors, the sprawling gardens, and the luxury cars parked in the driveway. Their new home was functional, but far from extravagant. 3-bedroom, minimal decor, and neighbors who didn't care about their titles or wealth. For Yetunde, the change was quite triumph. She had long prepared for this moment, ensuring that she wouldn't be left stranded by Ademola's recklessness. But for Ademola, it was a bitter pill to swallow. His pride had taken a massive hit, and every day was a reminder of how far he had fallen. He stomped through the small apartment, grumbling about its size, the peeling paint, and the noise from the street outside. You would think the landlord could at least maintain the place properly. He muted one evening as he shuffled through a stack of bills. Yetunde, busy organizing the kitchen, paused for a moment. She had grown used to his complaints but found them ironic given the circumstances. "You could always talk to the landlord," she suggested with a slight smile. Ademola waved her off. "I will handle it when I have time. There are bigger things to worry about." Ademola's financial strain was evident in every aspect of their lives. His once expensive wardrobe was now limited to a handful of suits, and his dinners consisted of Yetunde's home-cooked meals rather than extravagant restaurant feast. One evening, as he sat at the dining table going through their bills, he noticed something peculiar. The rent for the apartment had been paid on time every month, despite his dwindling bank account. Confused, Ademola frowned at the receipt in his hand. The payments were issued under an account he didn't recognize. "Yetunde," he called, his voice sharp. "Who's been paying the rent?" Yetunde appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on his dish towel. "I have," she said simply. Ademola stared at her, his confusion turning into suspicion. "How? With what money?" Yetunde walked over, her expression calm but firm. "It's my building, Ademola. I own it." For a moment, Ademola didn't respond. He blinked, as though trying to process her words. "What do you mean you own it? Since when?" "Since before we moved in," Yetunde replied, her voice steady. "I inherited it from my father. I have been managing these properties for years." Ademola's face darkened with disbelief and anger. "You are telling me I have been paying rent to my own wife? Why didn't you tell me?" "Would it have made a difference?" Yetunde asked, her tone laced with quiet defiance. "You never cared to know what I was capable of. You assumed I was nothing without you." Ademola shot to his feet, his voice rising. "You have been scheming behind my back. You planned this, didn't you? Waiting for me to fail so you could humiliate me." Yetunde held her ground. "This isn't about humiliation, Ademola. It's about survival. You left me with no choice. You controlled everything. Our finances, my life, even my dignity. I had to rebuild what you tried to take away." Ademola's pride wouldn't let him accept the truth. "You have been lying to me. You made me look like a fool." "No," Yetunde said firmly. "You did that to yourself." For the first time in their marriage, Yetunde saw fear in Ademola's eyes. His confidence had crumbled, and the man who once wielded power over her now stood before her powerless. It was a moment of vindication, but it wasn't enough to erase the years of pain she had endured. Ademola tried to salvage the situation. Over the next few days, he softened his tone, offering apologies and promises. "We can fix this, Yetunde," he said one evening. "I made mistakes, but we can rebuild together. You have proven that you are strong, and I admire that." Yetunde listened, but her heart had already moved on. She couldn't forget the years of neglect, the insult, and the betrayal. Ademola's words felt hollow. His sudden change of heart born out of this desperation rather than genuine remorse. When he suggested they used her rental income to fund his new business idea, Yetunde made her decision. "Ademola," she said, her voice steady, "this marriage is over." The divorce proceedings were swift but emotionally draining. Ademola fought to retain some control, but Yetunde's legal team was unyielding. Her properties remained hers, her finances untouched. For the first time, Ademola had to confront the reality of his actions and the consequences of his arrogance. Yetunde walked out of the courtroom feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. She had once loved Ademola, but the man she had married no longer existed. What remained was a shadow of someone consumed by ego and entitlement. Yetunde's life flourished after the divorce. She expanded her property portfolio, launched a successful consulting business, and became a mentor for young women navigating similar challenges. Her story became an inspiration, featured in magazines and at empowerment events. Meanwhile, Ademola's life continued to spiral downward. His attempts to rebuild his empire were met with failure. His reputation, tarnished by years of reckless decisions. Alone and bitter, he occasionally saw Yetunde's name in the news, a painful reminder of the life he had squandered. Years later, Yetunde stood on the stage of packed auditorium, addressing an audience of young women. "Strength doesn't come from what others give you," she said. "It comes from what you reclaim for yourself." The applause was thunderous, a testament to how far she had come. Yetunde smiled, knowing that her journey was far from over. She had found herself again, and this time, no one could take that away. Ademola's life after Yetunde was a shadow of the empire he once commanded. Stripped of his wife's quiet strength and the illusion of his financial dominance, he was left to fend for himself in a world he had no real control over. He moved into a tiny 2-room apartment in a less glamorous neighborhood, a far cry from the mansion he once boasted about. The furniture was second-hand, the walls peeling and the silence deafening. Gone were the days of champagne-filled parties and expensive outings. His phone barely rang now, and when it did, it was often from creditors demanding payment. The business partners he had once entertained with lavish dinners were nowhere to be found. Even his old friends avoided him, unwilling to be associated with someone who had so spectacularly fallen from grace. Ademola tried to maintain the facade of a man in control, but every attempt to regain his footing only sank him deeper into despair. He pitched new business ideas to investors, but his reputation as a reckless spender preceded him. No one was willing to take the risk. In his solitude, Ademola began to reflect on the choices that had led him here. He thought about Yetunde, the woman he had once loved but taken for granted. Her strength had been a quiet one, a resilience he had failed to notice until it was too late. She had stood by him through his arrogance and infidelity, only to emerge stronger when he had crumbled. Ademola's thoughts often drifted to Linda. He remembered her mocking laughter when he told her he could no longer afford their lavish outings. "I don't date broke men," he had said before walking out the door. Linda had been nothing more than a parasite, feeding off his wealth until there was nothing left. In contrast, Yetunde had built something lasting, something real. Regret consumed him, but his pride kept him from reaching out. What would he even say? That he was sorry? That he had been blind to her value? Ademola knew that even if he begged for forgiveness, Yetunde had moved on to a life where he no longer mattered. While Ademola struggled, Yetunde's life flourished. She expanded her property management businesses, acquiring new properties and creating affordable housing projects that gained her recognition in the community. She also launched a foundation dedicated to empowering women, offering mentorship programs and financial literacy workshops. Yetunde's name became synonymous with resilience and success. She was invited to speak at conferences, featured in magazines, and celebrated as a role model. Her story, a woman who reclaimed her independence after years of being undervalued, resonated with countless others. But Yetunde didn't dwell on her past. She focused on building her future where her strength and wisdom could make a difference. Her foundation grew into a nationwide movement, inspiring across the country to pursue their dreams without fear. One day, as Yetunde left a speaking engagement, she saw a familiar figure in the crowd. Ademola stood at a distance, his once proud posture now hunched, his tailored suit replaced by worn-out clothing. He caught her eye, and for a moment their gazes locked. Yetunde felt a wave of emotions, pity, anger, and a tinge of sadness. She walked over to him, her heels clicking against the pavement. "Ademola," she said, her voice calm but distant. "It's been long." He swallowed hard, his voice faltering. "Yetunde, you look well." "And you?" she asked, though he already knew the answer. "I'm managing," he said, avoiding her gaze. After a pause, he added, "I heard about everything you have accomplished. Congratulations." Yetunde nodded. "Thank you." There was an awkward silence before Ademola spoke again. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything. I didn't realize what I had until I lost it." Yetunde studied him for a moment. His voice carried a weight of sincerity, but she knew they came too late. "I hope you've learned something from it," she said. "I have." Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked away, her head held high. Ademola watched her go, knowing it was the last time he would see her. Ademola spent the following weeks in deep introspection. He finally began to understand the gravity of his actions and the cost of his pride. He realized that wealth without integrity and respect was a hollow victory. Slowly, he began rebuilding his life, not as the man he used to be, but as someone humbled by failure. He found a modest job managing a small logistic company, earning just enough to live a simple life. The flashy lifestyle was gone, but so was the arrogance. He began to find solace in the small victories, paying off a debt, reconnecting with distant family, and rediscovering himself. Yetunde's journey shows us the importance of self-worth and the courage to reclaim your independence. Even when the odds seem stacked against you, her transformation from a woman overshadowed by her husband's arrogance to a powerful, self-made icon is a lesson in perseverance and strength. On the other hand, Ademola's fall from grace reminds us that pride and entitlement can lead to devastating consequences. Yet, even in his darkest moment, his eventual redemption serves as a reminder that it's never too late to change and make amends. In the end, both Yetunde and Ademola found new paths, hers filled with empowerment and triumph, his marked by humility and service. Their story is a testament to the human spirit's ability to rise from the ashes, rebuild, and inspire others. If you enjoyed this tale of resilience and transformation, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that reminds us of life's powerful lesson. Thank you for watching. Bye.